Hello, I'm Aaron Michael Ritchie.
And I'm Cody May.
And this is a Colorado Author Interview Circle.
Oh, season 2. I just have to say that every time because I'm excited that we're back. 2 years later.
No,
Amazing.
we don't talk about that. No, and we're with today. We're with Stant Litore.
Litore.
Stant Litore, and I'm a fan, so I'm nervous.
Don't be
Do
nervous.
we need to switch seats,
I won't be too
man?
destructive.
No, because you wrote a series of books. The fifth one's coming out, and
That's right.
it's the zombie Bible series. And tell us it. I could talk
Let's
about
see.
it, but let's have you talk about
let's
it.
have him talk.
Absolutely. So the zombie Bible is, think of something like The Walking Dead set 3,000 years ago in the ancient Near East.
Oh,
Essentially,
goodness.
each volume in the series, and each of them is a standalone volume, retells an Old Testament story or an ancient church legend as an episode in humanity's long struggle against hunger and the hungry dead.
The hunger and
The Hungry Dead.
and it's such a great, because I think one of the ideas about the whole zombie thing is like really humanity dealing with death and like the legacy of death, and to put it in this kind of biblical sense, there's so many themes that you can go through. It's so rich, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, like me, I just, when I watched the original Romero, Night of the Living Dead, or when I read a good zombie novel, it just starts making me think, wow, how would, I'm a huge history buff, so I think, how would our ancestors have dealt with what's essentially a metaphysical crisis?
Right.
Not only are your dead reanimated, but they're trying to devour you. So it becomes an opportunity to talk about the predatory side of humanity. Can you hand me Strangers in the Land real quick?
Man, so we look at this.
A body of work.
I've been at this a while.
All right, which one do you want to see? Strangers in the Land.
That one. So this is
Man.
actually the quote on the back. This is something one of the characters says that I think really captures how these books explore the mythology of the hungry dead.
Okay, let's hear it.
She says, when you see another's face, the face of a child or of someone hungry or hurt, someone pleading for your love, their eyes look back. You look at them, they look at you, only the dead don't look back. So it becomes a chance to explore.
Did you shiver?
I did.
I do too.
I got the chills, man.
Me too.
I wasn't going to say it, but I did.
So Stan, let's back up.
Sure.
Back up.
I'm a talker, so you gotta stop.
Where
No.
did this idea come from?
Oh,
From a meteorite.
But see, there's also the idea, and then there's also the execution. So you chose it. You could have put it into, Judea, but you chose to use kind of a biblical kind of backdrop. So the first book is about Jeremiah in a well.
that's right.
His city is under siege, and from without, the Babylonians.
That's right.
And then from within, from the dead who die, who come back to life as zombies.
Right.
So,
The living and the dead in the city are starving together.
oh, it's so good. So where did you So why the Bible? Because were you worried about kind of, because once you say Bible,
Yeah.
people can kind of get funny.
Oh yeah, I've gotten startled reactions from everyone on every end of the political and religious spectrum.
Really?
These are neither evangelical nor irreverent. They're actually just deep anthropological studies of the lives of these religious people in religious cultures, wrestling with the profoundly religious questions of life and death and what our ethical responsibilities to each other are. For where I came up with the idea, all of my ideas come up really randomly. I just, it's like I play with dinosaurs on my desk, so I start writing a book about dinosaurs. Or I watch Romero's, I'm a huge history buff, huge religious studies buff, so I was reading the book of Judges and watched The Night of the Living Dead the same night. And it just clicked. I was like, well, what if the prophet Deborah was facing swarms of thousands of dead? And how would Canaanites and Hebrews have dealt with that? How would they have thought and felt about it? And it just, this whole story chain started kind of rolling in from there.
So the first one's Jeremiah. The second one is?
The second one is a retelling of the martyrdom of St. Polycarp. So it's an early church story.
Christian.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right. The third one is Strangers in the Land. That is the story of a not very frequently told story, actually, of an Old Testament female prophet. And this is kind of cool because she's a middle-aged female prophet wrestling with this passive atrocity in her land. So she's a very, very, and it's essentially an epic fantasy story. First of all, it's a thick monster. It's Stun a burglar type book. And
Bam.
it's, Gene Wolfe, I think it was, who said the definition of great literature is you can use it to stun a burglar. But it's not the kind of character you usually get in that kind of fantasy.
Sure.
This isn't a young man coming of age. It's not a young woman who's going to become the mother of dragons. No, this is a woman in her 40s in the ancient Near East who has the ability to see the future and knows some things that are coming. And she's trying to hold together these scattered tribes in an ancient world that's not very kind to either women or prophets.
Right. And especially older women. I mean, So that's the third one.
That's the
fourth.
third one.
Which one's the fourth? Where are we at?
Here, the next thick one.
This one?
No. The one with CAIC on the cover in the boat. There we are. Yeah, so this takes us to the New Testament, and this is a retelling of the opening chapters of the Old Gospel of St. Mark. There you are. I don't know if the camera can
So
see it, but-
so Jesus, you tackled a Jesus with zombies. Now, were you afraid to? Because Old Testament is kind of
There's
like,
like a buffer there.
it's the old days, and there's whales and blah blah blah, and
There's
Job. I
whales.
love Job.
See, I write out of my passion for the stories. Here's the thing: the Bible, church legends, all of this form this massive, rich, deep cultural storehouse, treasury of stories that have mattered to our spiritual and cultural ancestors for thousands of years. And we live in this weird moment in our weird, wonderful country where everybody talks about these stories and they make a huge difference on the political stage and they inform so many things, but nobody actually pays any attention to them. So a lot of religious people, for example, in religious communities, stop paying attention to the stories because they're trained to go into religious texts like the Bible and read for confirmation of what they already know or believe. Those who are not religious are trained to dismiss the texts because they're taught and are, I think, often afraid that in order to engage with these very deep, powerful stories, you have to accept with it an entire political agenda and belief system. And I wanted people to experience these stories as if they've never heard them before, like be moved by stories that I encountered as a kid, not specifically in a religious context, but because a daycare teacher gave me a King James Bible and I went home and just breezed through Genesis. I was like, oh my goodness, these are amazing stories. I want more. And I want people to engage with
And
the
they
stories
don't have to be
questions they ask.
true. I mean, that's the problem, is the idea
Right.
that you don't read scripture for historical or it's not a science textbook. It is scripture. It is poetry. It's telling the larger mythology of being human and what it is to be human.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question of historicity of a particular book is largely irrelevant to what I'm doing, and to what I've always really been interested in, which I would describe it in maybe different terms than you just did, but I think you're right. It's about these stories of how our ancestors wrestled with God, how they wrestled with each other, and how they wrestled with how do we be human beings in a fiercely unjust and dark world.
Yeah. Oh my God. And then the fifth one is...
Oh yeah, Jephthah's daughter. So do you know the story, Aaron?
Jephthah.
Oh my goodness.
Hit me.
So Judges is this
Don't hit
bloody, brutal book. And there's a story about a man who is an outlaw. He's half Hebrew, he's half Canaanite. Nobody accepts him, but he leads this band of outlaws. And there's this huge battle, and in the middle of it, he prays and makes a vow saying, give me victory, O God, and the first living thing I see when I get home, I'll sacrifice to you. He's thinking, of course, that what he's going to see around his tents or around his house is going to be his livestock. And he gets home, and it's his daughter. So you have this very, very sad, troubling, disturbing story. That's the thing, the story, yes. So
it's like the story of Abraham and his son, right?
But without the rescue. It's a very dark story, and in the original story, Jephthah's daughter pleads for the right to go up into the hills to weep and pray for a few days first. So I wanted to tell the story from the perspective of Jephthah's daughter, alone in the hills, this young woman who has a Canaanite mother, a half Canaanite, half Hebrew father, is wrestling with all these competing stories about who God is and who human beings are and what they're like. She has a father who's going to track her down and sacrifice her, she presumes. And she's up in the hills that are haunted by the unquiet dead of her people. Just as everything in her life is haunted by the ghosts of this people's past. And she has to not only survive physically, but like survive mentally and emotionally. I mean, your dad's coming to kill you. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So it's the fifth book, I Will Hold
man.
My Death Close, is her story.
And it's such a beautiful. It's so great. Well, we're almost out of time. I hate that. I want to do this
that's
for
okay.
like 45 more minutes.
We should just increase the episodes.
Now, there's a couple things I wanted to. I heard great things about your writing characters.
Sure.
Which is a nonfiction.
Which is nonfiction, a reference. So it's write characters.
Your readers won't forget. Now, that's a class I teach at conventions. I've taught it at Colorado Free University a few times in the past. It's always been very popular. My students kept asking me to make some written form of it, so I finally sat down and did. And that's the written version of the class I teach.
And
Awesome.
and this is really what you're doing is just so exciting. And so one of the ways you fund this is through Patreon.
That's right.
And so, do you want to talk a little bit about Patreon?
Yeah, so back when I first started publishing in 2011, what I did before I started releasing the Zombie Bible is I gathered together through social media a group of about 30 or 40, I called them at the time VIPs. I said, hey, I want you guys to read it first. I was talking with them for 6 months before the books came out about, hey, here's what's coming. This is what it's about. And I just got all these people really excited with me, and they kind of became the core of these are the Stant Litore fans. These are the people that want to read the Zombie Bible and talk about it. Patreon's kind of what that evolved into. It's a crowdfunding platform where you gather together a membership community. They see everything first. They vote on the cover art. I share drafts with them. I discuss ideas with them. I get their ideas. And they set the membership fee individually at any. I thrive in telling stories to people and sharing stories with people. And so I wanted a community. So I've got this community of about 150 people. That's my Patreon community. If anyone out there wants to check it out, it's www.patreon.com/Stant Litore.
We'll put the link in the description. So
Awesome.
We'll
they can
link
click
the
right
description.
Yeah.
And so it's not Jeremiah in book 1. It's how do you pronounce the Hebrew?
Oh, Yirmiyahu.
Yirmiyahu. I'm changing my name right here.
It's a
Yirmiyahu.
good name. It's a good name. Yeah, no, huge. That's the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to dig deep into these cultures whose stories we've inherited, and I wanted to tell these stories through the perspective of let's be right there with Jeremiah, with Yirmiyahu in the well in a Hebrew city in the ancient world, wrestling with the hunger of the dead.
My goodness. Sounds like
Thank
you're
you
doing a great
so
job.
much,
Thanks for
Stan.
having me.
It's been my pleasure. That's so
Thank
awesome.
you so much.
Thanks for letting me tell you some stories.
No worries.
So this has been the Colorado Author Interview Circle. I'm Aaron Michael
And
Ritchie.
I'm Cody May.
Stay spicy, Denver.
Sassy. I don't know.
Sexy.
We'll figure it out.
All the above.